In a world that worships pleasure and mocks discipline, most men drift through life half asleep, drained, distracted, and unaware of their true potential. They chase sensations, mistaking surrender for freedom, never realizing that every indulgence makes the chains tighter. But a rare few choose another path. They resist the pull. They turn inward, mastering the storm instead of being swept away by it. And in that resistance, something awakens. Their energy no longer leaks away, it builds, intensifies, transforms. Desire becomes power. Focus sharpens. Presence deepens. The man who once chased now begins to attract. He doesn't escape life's temptations, he transcends them. Because the one who can master his own desire can master anything. Half awake, the modern man sleepwalk through life. Most men move through life as if their eyes are open, but their minds are closed. They wake, work, scroll, and sleep mechanical patterns disguised as living. Beneath the surface, something essential is missing: awareness. Neuroscience shows that more than 90% of human behavior is driven by automatic processes in the subconscious mind. These mental programs run like background code, steering thoughts, emotions, and impulses long before the conscious mind intervenes. Nowhere is this automation more powerful than in the domain of desire. The sexual drive, governed by deep neurological reward systems, is among the strongest forces within the brain. When uncontrolled, it hijacks motivation, narrows focus, and anchors men to cycles of instant gratification. The tragedy is not in the desire itself. Desire is natural, but in identification with it. When a man becomes the puppet of his impulses, he loses the ability to direct his own life. To awaken from this half-sleep, he must first see the strings that pull him. Awareness breaks the spell. Every moment of mindfulness interrupts the mechanical routine and restores freedom of choice. True awakening is not mystical. It is neurological, a shift from reaction to deliberate action. The man who begins to observe himself no longer lives like a shadow. He starts to see that discipline is not suppression, but the awakening of command over one's own machinery. The precious current, understanding the science of vital energy. Within every man exists a biological current more valuable than any external resource, the subtle energy that fuels vitality, creativity, and mental clarity. In physiological terms, this can be seen as the combined effect of hormonal balance, neurotransmitter flow, and metabolic charge. When this system is overstimulated by excessive release or indulgence, it leads to depletion of dopamine sensitivity, testosterone fluctuation, and neural fatigue. Modern research in endocrinology and neurochemistry reveals that frequent overstimulation of the reward circuit actually lowers motivation and dulls emotional sensitivity. What feels like freedom in the moment becomes exhaustion in the long run. The idea that orgasm equals liberation is a cultural illusion. Biologically, repeated overuse of this system is equivalent to draining a battery faster than it can recharge. Conservation, on the other hand, allows the nervous system to recalibrate and build reserves of energy. Men who learn moderation often experience higher drive, sharper concentration, and deeper calm outcomes confirmed by hormonal and psychological studies. The essence here is not moral but energetic. Energy directed outward and wasted ceases to serve growth. Energy contained and refined becomes the seed of transformation. What society calls restraint is, in truth, biological optimization, a process of aligning primal force with purpose rather than impulse. The alchemy of restraint, transforming desire into power. Self-control is not the absence of desire, but the redirection of it. Every strong impulse carries raw energy, and that energy can either destroy focus or build greatness depending on how it is channeled. When a man practices restraint, he begins a subtle alchemy converting instinct into intention. Modern psychology calls this transmutation, where one neural pathway associated with craving is rewired toward higher goals such as creativity, problem-solving, or mastery. Over time, this redirection thickens neural connections in the prefrontal cortex, the center of decision-making and willpower. Biologically, stored sexual energy corresponds with higher testosterone stability, improved dopamine regulation, and enhanced neuroplasticity. The mind becomes less reactive and more visionary. The result is not suppression, but transformation. A restrained man radiates a different frequency. His movements become deliberate, his thoughts precise, his emotions grounded. He does not merely resist temptation, he rewrites his brain to operate at a higher voltage. The ancient concept of building subtle matter mirrors what neuroscience now identifies as cognitive and energetic reinforcement. Each day of discipline compounds. Desire once wasted in fleeting release now fuels purpose, artistry, and vision. Restraint is the forge in which raw vitality becomes conscious power. Mastery of mind, the neurobiology of self-command. The human brain thrives on energy conservation. When overstimulated, it scatters attention. When balanced, it sharpens it. By consciously regulating impulses, a man engages the most advanced circuitry of his brain, the executive networks responsible for focus, planning, and resilience. Studies on meditation and abstinence show measurable increases in gray matter density within these regions, suggesting that deliberate self-control literally rewires the mind for strength. Emotional regulation also stabilizes as serotonin and dopamine return to equilibrium. The fog lifts, thought becomes lucid, decisions align with long-term vision rather than instant pleasure. Psychologically, this marks the transition from being driven to driving. The man no longer moves as an effect of desire, but as a cause of intent. His energy, once fragmented, begins to organize around a single-axis will. He speaks less yet carries more weight. He acts slower yet achieves more. The mastery of desire is, at its core, the mastery of attention, and attention is the currency of reality. Where attention goes, energy flows, and where energy is concentrated, power emerges. To hold one's energy is therefore to hold one's destiny. Magnetic presence, the physics of inner gravity. Every person emits a subtle field of influence, a psychosomatic resonance shaped by chemistry, confidence, and coherence. When a man preserves his internal energy, this field becomes stronger and more ordered. Biophysicists describe a phenomenon called coherent resonance, where aligned energy fields amplify one another. In human terms, coherence manifests as charisma, focus, and calm intensity. People naturally sense it. They lean closer, listen longer, and treat the individual with unspoken respect. This is not mysticism, but measurable physiology. Steady breathing, balanced hormones, and synchronized brain rhythms project stability that others unconsciously mirror. The more integrated the inner system, the greater its external pull, just as a magnet attracts iron filings through invisible order. The man who guards his vitality develops this inner gravity. His gaze becomes steady, his posture unshaken, his voice calm yet commanding. He does not need to assert dominance. Presence itself speaks louder than words. In relationships, work, and creativity, this coherence draws opportunity without chasing it. Magnetic presence is the natural byproduct of disciplined energy. It is not about control over others, but harmony within oneself. And in a fragmented world, that harmony is irresistible, a quiet force that shapes reality by the sheer weight of being. The inner battlefield, the science of resisting instinct. The greatest war is not fought with weapons, but within one's own body. Every man who practices self-restraint enters a battlefield where biology and will collide. The primitive brain, shaped by millions of years of evolution, demands immediate gratification. It equates survival with pleasure. Yet the higher mind, the prefrontal cortex, is designed to delay gratification for greater outcomes. In this conflict lies the making of character. Neuroscientists call it top-down control, the ability of reason to override impulse. When exercised, this control strengthens neural pathways for focus, discipline, and emotional stability. History echoes this truth. Civilizations that honored discipline through martial codes, sacred vows, and creative restraint rose to greatness. Those that surrendered to decadence decayed from within. The lesson is universal. Unchecked indulgence weakens both individuals and societies. Self-control, by contrast, refines energy into direction. Every urge resisted is a neuron rewired. Every temptation mastered, a victory of evolution over instinct. The struggle is not denial, it is transformation. Through restraint, a man learns that freedom is not doing whatever he wants. Freedom is being able to say no and mean it. The resonance of restraint, how the world reacts to energy. When a man begins to conserve his energy, the change is subtle yet undeniable. His posture alters, his tone deepens, his gaze steadies. On a biological level, his endocrine system balances, and his nervous system finds coherence. People respond instinctively to this balance because humans are, in essence, emotional mirrors. Studies in social neuroscience show that presence and confidence radiate through micro-expressions, body language, and vocal frequency. The one who carries stable energy unconsciously leads. It is not charisma born from showmanship but magnetic authenticity. Opportunities seem to find him not by accident but by resonance. Employers, partners, and peers sense reliability, strength, and clarity. This is the physics of human energy, where order attracts order. Restraint refines that order. By holding back impulsive reactions and urges, one emits a frequency of calm authority. Respect, attraction, and success flow not because of external effort, but because the man's inner system vibrates in harmony with confidence itself. The world doesn't reward noise, it rewards gravity. The man who chooses, willpower and the architecture of destiny. The difference between an ordinary man and a disciplined one is choice. The former reacts, the latter decides. True willpower is not brute resistance, it is alignment between desire and purpose. Modern psychology describes will as a finite resource that strengthens with use, much like a muscle. Each act of discipline builds structural integrity in the brain's frontal regions, reinforcing habits of self-command. Over time, this rewiring turns will into instinct. The disciplined man no longer struggles against temptation. He transcends it because his energy flows towards something greater, his mission. His life gains a central axis, and everything else begins to orbit around it. Neuroscience calls this goal coherence, the synchronization of thought, emotion, and action. Such coherence gives birth to unshakable focus and mental toughness. He is not moved by external validation. He operates from internal conviction. This is what separates leaders from followers, the ability to choose deliberately, even when it costs comfort. The man who governs his impulses becomes a sovereign over his own mind. He doesn't wait for destiny, he architects it. The architecture of the soul, energy as the raw material of being. Within the human organism lies a force that is both physical and metaphysical, the creative current that animates thought, emotion, and will. Ancient traditions called it life energy. Modern science frames it as the interplay between hormonal vitality, neurological function, and psychological drive. When this current is conserved and refined, it begins to construct what can only be described as an inner architecture. Each act of self-control becomes a brick, each focused intention, a beam. Over time, these invisible structures form the foundation of identity itself. Energy that once escaped through impulsive behavior is redirected into growth, learning, and self-awareness. The man who guards this current becomes inwardly solid. He cannot be easily shaken, for his stability is built from within. In this sense, restraint is not deprivation, it is construction. The energy that could be lost to pleasure becomes the very material of purpose. Just as muscles are built through resistance, the soul, if such a word can describe consciousness integrated with will, is built through discipline. The result is not ascetic emptiness, but fullness, a mind clear, a body strong, a spirit unbreakable. The hidden design, escaping a system that profits from weakness. Modern society thrives on distraction. Entire industries profit from keeping the human mind overstimulated and under-disciplined. The average man is bombarded daily with images, sounds, and temptations that drain attention, the most valuable currency of consciousness. Neuromarketing exploits the same dopamine pathways that once drove our ancestors to hunt and survive. The result, a population that confuses stimulation for satisfaction. To break free from this design is an act of rebellion. Mastery of desire begins with awareness, recognizing that most impulses are engineered, not organic. By reclaiming control over attention and energy, a man liberates himself from manipulation. Studies in behavioral science confirm that individuals who delay gratification consistently show higher success across health, relationships, and wealth. The principle is timeless. The one who owns his focus cannot be controlled. In resisting a culture built to exploit weakness, a disciplined man becomes dangerous not to others, but to systems that depend on his distraction. His calm becomes his weapon, his clarity, his revolution. The final choice, from leaking vessel to silent king. Every man stands at a crossroads between exhaustion and empowerment. One path leads to leakage, the slow drain of vitality through indulgence, distraction, and doubt. The other leads upward, toward self-mastery, clarity, and command. The metaphor is simple yet profound. A vessel that leaks can never be filled. To patch the holes of one's own life is to begin the process of empowerment. Physiologically, this means stabilizing energy. Psychologically, it means aligning intention. Spiritually, it means owning one's essence. The man who preserves his energy becomes whole. His power is quiet but unmistakable, a silent kingship born not from dominance but from presence. He no longer needs recognition because his strength is self-evident. Every decision, every word carries weight because it flows from a reservoir that others have long exhausted. In a world of noise, he moves like still water, calm yet commanding. Freedom is not found in indulgence, but in sovereignty over self. And sovereignty begins with the simplest, hardest act of all, to stop wasting what makes you alive. Thank you for listening until the very end. If today's story has gently stirred your heart, whether through an old memory, a present feeling, or something never spoken into words, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Intimate wisdom is where we come together to touch the hidden corners of love, affection, and sexuality, things that may seem private, yet are in fact the very core of happiness. I wish you to always love deeply, live truthfully, and find yourself in every glance, every touch, and every trembling heartbeat. Affectionate greetings.